How many people would you say that you've managed to completely de-radicalise, as it were?
I'd say around 24 over 6 years.
So it's time consuming.
It's very time consuming, but you don't look at it like that. Yeah, you're dealing with a human being, so it's a privilege in that sense.
And time consuming because presumably you are trying to flip a mindset that doesn't just take weeks to change.
What you're doing with this is there's ideas that have been embedded for years, and this is a worldview that you're dealing with. This isn't whether someone's you're not changing their favourite colour. Yeah, you're going in and you're dealing with a worldview, and you're trying to take them from a place where they view themselves as part of a group and bring them into the rest of humanity, into the rest of the world, to see that they're not separate from that.
So how do you do it? How do you de-radicalise someone?
Well, with this, it's about sincerity, and it's about integrity, and it's about going in and sitting with the person and taking their identity, which is Muslim, and then teaching them that Islam is actually about understanding Allah as the infinitely loving, and from a traditional perspective in Islam, you can only know Allah through mercy and compassion, and their understanding of Islam, their very politicised understanding, is something that's post-colonial, if that makes sense.
So do you use as well linguistics with regards to the teachings of Islam to challenge that?
Yeah, I mean, what this gets into is this, when we're talking about post-colonial, we're actually talking about the fact that this is about not a misinterpretation, because everyone uses this term misinterpretation of Islam. We're actually talking about mistranslation, because modern Arabic isn't the same as traditional Arabic.
So key to this as well, then, from what you're saying, is the translation. Do you mean from the teachings of Quran or of the Quran? Is that where things have gone wrong, essentially?
Well, Islam is an oral tradition, which means it's supposed to be taught teacher to student. Yeah, the fact that you've got this what's called democratization of information, meaning that people are picking up and reading and interpreting for themselves, is actually something that's alien to traditional Islam. Islam's supposed to be taught teacher to student, and that teacher to student relationship is something that connects all the way back. So there's a historically verifiable chain going back to the Prophet Muhammad himself. So you don't get these very modern day interpretation. You see, if I give you an example, if I've had a bad day and I pick up a newspaper and I read about a millionaire footballer missing a goal, I'm going to be bitter, thinking to myself, oh, look at how much he gets paid and he's missed a goal. If I've had a good day and I see the same news report, I'm going to think, oh, why are they being so hard on him? Look at all the goals he scored before. And that's all to do with my interpretation on that day. Now, when you're talking about linguistics and you're talking about a sensory understanding, so an understanding that we have in English, where it's what's called a Latinized understanding, where what I can touch, taste and see is real, and then where you have the traditional Islamic understanding, which is collective. It's a very collective understanding that goes into understanding the universe from a perspective of your interconnection.
The way it seems to evolve then in the de-radicalisation process, if you like, is you're emphasising the teachings of Islam in the way that it connects everybody. So you're trying to connect that extremist to the rest of the world.
These individuals are often part of a tight community group. But the difference here is that us and them. Yeah, this idea that you're worshipping this God that wants you to fight them because you're the chosen ones, and it's a very group orientated, us and them type of thought process. But
so you challenge that specifically.
When we speak to them about the fact that Islam is actually about the interconnection, not just between you and humanity, but between you and nature as well. Yeah, when you look at traditional Islam, it actually describes humanity from the point of view that if one part of it hurts, all of it hurts.
So how do you get them initially to engage with that? What's your first step, if you like?
Well, we're coming with the legitimacy of representing the world's foremost Islamic scholars. We're also coming with the legitimacy of having the mainstream community. Yeah, we represent millions of people around the world. This isn't some alien ideology that I'm talking to you about. This is what the majority of Muslims believe, even though they might not be able to put it into words. But what we're dealing with is we're dealing with people who are imposters coming and hijacking a tradition. Yeah, they're reading and quoting from books in front of them where they don't even understand the linguistic context of what they're reading. So they don't understand the context of what's written in front of them. They're often, a lot of what's being read, and I'm saying 99% of it, is analogous. So when you've got that in front of you, okay, well, what is the context of that analogy in the first place? Because if you read it as it is, it doesn't make sense.
So this obviously doesn't take hours of discussion. This is weeks, this is months, this is years.
Yeah, with some people it's years, but it isn't about years, because let me rephrase that and put it in its proper context. That you're there to help, and help doesn't have an expiry date on it. Yeah, this isn't a case of, okay, you're de-radicalised. No, it's, look, you're part of this community now. What do you need?